From the Oregon State University Extension Service, this is Pollination, a podcast that tells the stories of researchers, land managers, and concerned citizens making bold strides to improve the health of pollinators. I'm your host, Dr. Adoni Melathopoulos, Assistant Professor in Pollinator Health in the Department of Horticulture. This is the last episode of the season, and I just happened to be in Lethbridge, Alberta this week, giving me an opportunity to visit with some very good friends at the Apiculture program with Alberta Agriculture and Forestry, Shelley Hoover, Lene Oving, and Jeff Kearns. And in this episode, we review some of the significant things that happened in apiculture in 2019. I also just want to take this opportunity to thank you for being such dedicated listeners to pollination. It always makes this show so exciting to get feedback from you and get ideas for episodes and guests. I want to wish you all the very best in 2020, and I'm looking forward to a whole new season starting in January. I am in Lethbridge, Alberta with a crack team for the final episode of the year of pollination. So on my left, I've got
Jeff Kearns. I'm an apiculture and pollination technician with the Government of Alberta's Bee Health Assurance Unit.
I'm Lene Oving. I'm also a senior technician with the same unit that Jeff is.
And I'm Shelley Hoover, and I'm the Bee Health Assurance Unit lead for the Alberta government.
And we all know each other.
We do.
We've known each other for a long time. And so this is why I think I came all the way from Oregon to Lethbridge.
Just for lunch.
For lunch for this episode, because I thought it was very important to bring this group together to sort of think about the big things that happened with bees. And we're going to focus mostly on honeybees today, but over the last year of 2019. And I think the first question that I want to ask you all, this was the year of Apimonida. It was a big thing in Canada. It was our second Apimonida that we ever had. Lots of American beekeepers came up, but it was just the biggest event, beekeeping congress. And I just want to ask each of you, and I'll think about what my answer is, what was sort of the highlights? What was the highlight of Apimondia for you? What sort of sticks in your mind as something you remember?
Other than Adoni's orange pants once more. He's always representing OSU. Gene Robinson's keynote address on the evolution of eusociality in honeybees I was totally riveted. I didn't even think I was interested in that area, and it was just amazing.
And he's been doing work on this topic for a long time, and I missed it. So give me what was sort of the... I think I was downstairs talking to somebody. What was sort of the highlights for you?
I think there's certain bees that when you put them in these little arenas that they do to do assays for a variety of things, there's just certain bees that completely ignore the stimuli. Oh. And what they actually found out was that the genes that were turned on in those bees were actually similar to the ones in autism, which is an amazing link.
Really?
Yeah, and they used a variety of controls for that study he explained very well. But it was just, I think the other thing was that he works in such an interesting lab where there's no like at universities, there's no traditional barriers between the various labs studying different species. So every day they're working with people who study zebrafish or Drosophila or whatever. It's not as differentiated.
I imagine that the real tradition out of that lab as well is they're really kind of well-designed experiments. They're really they get to the meat of things by the end of it.
Oh, yeah. And he had a lot of other things, too. I think he had an hour, which everyone else at Apimondia had 15 minutes, so you really got to just be really impressed. Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? Was there something at Apimondia because you were working, you were a volunteer?
Yes. I spent most of my time behind the volunteer table. But it was really great to see many beekeepers from British Columbia and other parts of the country that I hadn't seen for a long time. It was kind of a homecoming, a reunion, and I also felt a bit like a fanboy because there was it was like the beekeeping all-stars walking back and forth throughout the building.
It was really remarkable. There were just a lot of people there who from all over the world, too.
Yes, all over the place. I was really impressed with the people from Chile. I got to do a tour with them because there's a rooftop garden in bee operation at the Palais de Congrès in Montreal, and the Chileans their group was just full of life and a lot of colorful characters. They very lively group.
And so, and they at the time, I guess we probably didn't know, but they were the successful. They were successful not the next Apimondia in Russia, but the one after. The next one that's going to be in America is going to be in Chile.
Yes. Yes.
2023. Shelley, what was your highlights?
Well, I have to admit that one of my highlights was actually having it over because I was on the organizing committee. So not having any more responsibility was a nice thing. I also went to the COLOS meeting before Apimondia, and that was really sort of more into the meat of some of the science and some of the planning, and I'd never been
COLOS,
to
what is that?
COLOS is the colony loss.
Is it international? It's a big, but
it's a big European-centered group.
I know their symbol is like the Colossus of Rhodes.
Yeah, the Colossus
so
of Rhodes.
Very big.
They're trying to sort of expand their network into, say, Asia, Oceania, North America, South America, and try and sort of build on those relationships that they already have in Europe. They produce some of those great world colony loss surveys that you see published. So that was really great, and as I think Jeff said, just catching up with people you know or people you know only through email.
Well, just back to Colossus. So the thing that was really interesting to you was just the magnitude of like how people were thinking through colony losses in Europe. Like there was just a lot of dimensions of it, or what was the thing that was most impressive to you?
I think just the scale of the effort that they've gone to try and report statistics on colony losses, because every country is counting loss in a different way.
Oh, right.
What's a colony? What's lost? Is it something that's not profitable? Is it something that's actually dead? Is it queenless? So even just standardizing what is a lost colony, when do you report it, how many beekeepers do you have to report statistics from that particular country? So they've gone to a huge effort. I mean, it's one thing to do it across Canada where we have this huge geography with only 10 provinces, but across all of Europe, it's a very daunting exercise to try and even produce those statistics.
And those figures are really important for policymakers when they're thinking about are things working,
yeah,
are
absolutely.
initiatives working. Okay.
Yeah.
What was my highlight of Apimondia? Because I remember I was sort of, I was in some of the workshops, and I just liked that you could, when you had those workshops, you assembled people from everywhere. Like you would have people in the room from different continents, kind of thinking about the same problem. And I do actually remember Neil Speck, beekeeper from Saskatchewan, coming up to him by one of the coffee urns and just talking about how we're all kind of dealing with the same species, even though we're on different areas, that you could strike up a conversation from somebody from Ethiopia pretty easily because you had this kind of common language, which I thought was awesome.
I think Neil could do that anyway.
Neil's pretty good at talking to anybody. He's the friendliest of friendlies. Yeah. Okay, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come to question number 2. It's a little song.
Do do do.
Oh, you know the song. Awesome. Okay, and we're back, and we were just talking at the break. Lene actually, she had 2 memorable quotes from Apimondia. What were those 2 quotes?
One, which I don't remember who said it, but apparently it was from some old bee researcher from a long time ago, said, "Bees do nothing invariably," which I feel like perfectly summarizes the challenges of doing research on bees.
What does it mean? Like,
when you have a group of colonies and you think they should be the same experimental unit, like dogs that are bred from the same line, and
they don't behave
2
the
of
same.
them do something cockeyed, and one of them has 3 queens, and the other one dies of chalk brood in a mite experiment. Bees do nothing invariably.
That's a great quote.
And then the second was attributed to Marlis Spivak. Someone else said it, was that colony survival is not bee health.
Oh, that's a good quote. Right, because a colony might survive, but it has all sorts of problems. It's not as productive. One can't just use.
Yes, I think if we want truly healthy bees, there's a lot more than that. They just survive.
Nice. Good job gathering those.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is the next question I have for you guys, our convened roundtable of the end of the year. Tell me something about bees that you learned this year that brand new, that was new to you. Shelley, you look ready.
that mites feed on hemolymph, or not on hemolymph, but on
the
fat bodies.
That was pretty remarkable.
That was pretty remarkable, I think, and really, really excellent research to sort of, I don't know how to phrase it, but to prove it. They came at that question from many different directions,
and
to sort of change the paradigm.
And Samuel Ramsey, is he coming to Alberta, or was he just here?
He was here last February. Poor Samuel Ramsey. He flew into Edmonton, and it was like 40 below, and he was in an airport hotel and didn't go anywhere.
For those of you potential speakers in America who do get an invite to the Alberta Beekeeping Commission meeting.
This was the IPM meeting in February.
The February meeting.
Yeah.
It can be cold, but I think we had Ramesh Sagili was up here a couple years ago. And he expressed, it was a little chilly for him being an Oregonian, but it is a great meeting. There's a great province with a lot of excellent beekeepers, and so do not decline. Don't be scared off by Samuel's.
Don't be scared.
Okay.
Yeah. Although I also remember Daniel Downey flying into a meeting in Winnipeg, and she was coming from Hawaii, and the airline lost all of her luggage.
Oh my God.
So she went from Hawaii to Winnipeg in January with no luggage. So maybe pack a sweater in your carry-on.
She could probably do it, though.
She did. She
people.
was didn't even phase her.
Okay, great. So the fat body, varroa mites feeding on a fat body, not just entirely on hemolymph. This is this big.
Yeah, and I think that has big implications for how do we go about managing varroa.
Someone at Apimonida, or was it recently put together it was at our AGM, is that it really has a lot to do with the winter bees, because the winter bees have increased fat stores. So if they're being fed upon by varroa mites, you're going to get these really substandard winter bees. And particularly up here, that has huge implications because we really rely on that generation.
That was Megan, wasn't it?
Yes, someone from Michigan.
Megan Milbreath.
Megan Milbreath. Okay, we've had her on a show previously.
She gave an amazing talk.
Yeah.
Two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. That's a great point, and it sort of comes back to your quote as well at the same time. It's sort of like just because the colony doesn't die, it may have reduced fat stores, and its survival down the road will be poor.
Yeah.
The thing you learned about bees this year for the first time.
Yes, I had previously known of Browla, but I saw Browla for the first time.
Browla?
Bee louse is the official thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Describe what you saw.
Well, at first glance, and particularly if one is someone who needs bifocals, you're like, oh, there's bromide on this, like the same color and the same little brown thing. But once I saw it, and it was on a queen, but once I got closer, I'm like, no, this is wrong. They kind of sit higher, and they're not the right shape. But otherwise, I could see how if you couldn't see very detailed, you would definitely think they were the same thing. And they also move a lot. They move quite quickly,
really?
Whereas varroa tend to stay in place.
But it's the same color and rough size.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you look into what they do? Are they damaging or?
People have always said they're kind of benign, and I'd also heard in the past that you just treat for mites and it'll kill them. That turns out not to be true.
Oh, because you had a mite treatment in and they were still.
Well, and I was talking to Rob Curry about this, and he said they got them in 4 years ago at the U of M apiary, and they're still there. So
this is Rob Curry at the University of Manitoba.
Yeah.
And so he's got an active colony going in his colony.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
But they don't seem to really cause too much damage.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, you're up.
For me, it would have been queen rearing. We've done some smaller queen rearing projects in the last few years, but this year we did a much larger version of it, and we went full on, beginning to end. So doing the grafting and having cell builders and cell finishers and all the intricacies that go on in there, that was the thing that stands out for me this year.
I saw when I was up here in February. When I was up here in February, it was March at the meeting here in Brooks. I heard a little bit about this work, which is really intriguing. You guys have been looking at when beekeepers bring bees in for pollination, actually using that as an opportunity to make queens. Like they're in this hybrid canola seed pollination for a while, and then using it as a great opportunity. There's lots of drones in the area.
Yeah, and the canola pollination, seed canola particularly, in the pollination fields, there's a large congregation of hives. Lene and I spent a couple days driving back and forth down dirt roads, mapping out all the colonies within 10 square kilometers of where we put our mating nukes. And do you remember how many? 4,000 colonies? So that's a lot of drones inside 4,000 colonies.
Wait a second, we talked about this in the episode with Shelley Hoover, which you can hear in more detail. Thanks for the tip. Woo. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll come back to our last question. Okay, we're back. So, Shelley, what was the kind of big story for you in 2019? What was one of the things that sticks in your mind has happened this year?
Well, part of my job is also regulations and policy, and so a pretty big deal for us in Western Canada is detections of Asian hornets in British Columbia, both on Vancouver Island and now recently in the mainland. So this is Vespa mandarinia, and it's a wasp that will actually eat bees and can kill colonies. So it's a pretty important bee predator in some parts of the world. Mm-hmm. It comes from Asia, obviously, and so that's something we're going to be watching really closely.
When we say detection, do we have a sense of how established it is? Is it spreading? What do we know?
We know for certain that they found 2 colonies, one on the island and one on the mainland, and those were both killed, but we don't know how established the population is in British Columbia.
And I did see something from Washington. I have to confirm this. It was in my inbox, but Washington State Department of Agriculture, I think there might have been a detection there. So this is really a story for the Pacific Northwest, but also the West coming into
right.
Alberta and inland into Idaho.
And interestingly, they've also had detections at airports, too. People deliberately bringing in the brood as a medicine.
You're joking.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. All right, folks. So I think that's one thing for 2020 to keep your eyes out for, and I think Department of Agriculture is going to certainly notify people. Beekeepers should keep their eyes peeled for these wasps. Lene, what is your...
Yes, my big thing is honey adulteration. I think it's been creeping up for a number of years now, but just so much more aware of it in 2019. In particular, the CFIA did a study on Canadian honeys on the shelves, and a large proportion of them were adulterated. Imported honeys on Canadian shelves.
Okay.
Yeah. And rice syrup seems to be a big problem.
Oh, so these are people who are adding cheap sweeteners into things that are labeled as honey. That brings down their costs, but then they make more profit, but it's not honey.
Yeah, no, definitely not honey. And it's also really part of the reason that honey prices are not recovering in Canada as well. So, but our Canadian honey seems to be fine. And Jeff can talk more about some of the honey problems at the Honey Awards.
Oh, yeah, let's hear about this.
Yes, at Apimonida there was I think it's called the World Beekeeping Awards, and beekeepers from all over the world submit honey samples and other hive products, mead, things like that. And my wife, who was also volunteering, Chelsea, she had a chance to act as a guard at the World Beekeeping Awards because the judges were doing their thing and the public wasn't allowed to go in. And it was quite exciting. You would think it would be just a very sedate atmosphere, but people were being very heated. One gentleman was yelling and had to be escorted out of the building by security. But what was going on is about more than 40% of the honey submitted for judging was disqualified from the competition for various reasons based on the results of those tests.
Okay, I guess mine. I was thinking this is a real honeybee focused panel, and so I'm going to stay on the honeybee focus because the thing I was really shocked was with this year, and I know it's an issue that happened right across the border and right across the U.S. as well as European foulbrood. I think I was doing a trial in Oregon looking at colonies coming into blueberry pollination, leaving blueberry pollination, and just seeing the level of European foulbrood in the colonies after they left was shocking to me. And I guess similar things have happened here in British Columbia. And it's Sarah Woods, right, at the University of Saskatchewan, who's been looking at the different types of the little there seems to be something going on genetically. Do you know more about that, Shelley?
No, other than we're seeing some of the atypical bacterial strains. But it's also not clear how these atypical strains perform in terms of their symptomologies in actual colonies. So I think that's something that we need to look at more.
Okay, because I know there's been similar, Megan Milbrath in Michigan has noticed a very similar thing going on.
Yeah, East and West Coast, Canada and U.S.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for taking time, and we're settling our bill, and we're off to 2020.
Thanks for coming to visit.
Best of luck here with the Lethbridge unit. Thank you so much for listening. The show is produced by Quinn Sinan-Neal, who's a student here at OSU in the New Media Communications program, and the show wouldn't even be possible without the support of the Oregon Legislature, the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research, and Western SARE. Show notes with links mentioned on each episode are available on the website, which is at pollinationpodcast.oregonstate.edu. I also love hearing from you, and there's several ways to connect with me. The first one is you can visit the website and leave an episode-specific comment. You can suggest a future guest or topic, or ask a question that could be featured in a future episode. But you can do the same things on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook by visiting the Oregon Bee Project. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.